But we are happy to be back. We are COVID-free in Jesus' name. Praise the Lord. Now I'm immune, right? That's how that works, right? Now I'm immune. We'll get started on today. So super thankful that you guys valued this time today because, I'll just tell you, in April we will be 13 years old as a church. Amen. Praise the Lord. We're going to celebrate year number 13 as a church. In April, 14 years ago, before Pastor Darian was a pastor, right? I was a really good number 2 person at a church. The Lord had put in our heart to start Your Place Church. And at that time, we knew it was going to be here, but we hadn't even started launch team meetings yet. Again, if you've not been to Compass, you may not know that whole story, but we hadn't even started launch team meetings yet. And the church planning organization that was responsible for launching us, the ARC, basically had said, hey, listen, we've got an idea. We want you to be a part of what we're calling R9. And R9, it stood for Residency 9. And what it was essentially they wanted me to come. They wanted me to fly to Florida. They said, if you can get to Florida, we will take care of everything else. And we'll take care of your hotel. We'll take care of this conference. And we want you to spend 9 days with this group of fellas that know what they're doing. Their church is growing. It's going to be great. And then we want you to learn. And at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, because I feel like at that time I had done just about everything, but I was never the number one guy. I was never responsible for budgets. I was never overall responsible for leadership development in our churches that we had been a part of. And so I'm like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And so I made a decision to do it. Our kids were younger at the time, so Tyra stayed home. And so I literally flew to Florida and sacrificed for Jesus, right? And when I was there, I landed at the church that my friend Mike here was a part of. And I was one of, I think, 4 pastors that the ARC was just trying this idea out of what if we could just bring some pastors in, just spend a concentrated effort with them, like starts at 8 in the morning, ends at 8 at night, 9 days of here's how to launch a church. And it was by far the greatest experience I've ever been a part of. Because during that time, I met 14 years ago my friend Mike. And in those days, he began to push things inside of me that I am who I am today. The coaching that we do with churches all over the world, the leadership development that's a part of what you guys get to be experience here at Your Place Church, like large quantities of that came from this man right here. And so I am super thrilled today to have Mike with us. And give you a little example of what's going to, let me give you an idea of what's going to happen today. There's going to be 2 sessions. This is session number 1. We'll take a break afterwards, call it 15 minutes or so. Everybody can refill their coffees, go to the restroom, and then there's going to be session number 2. I don't even know what he's going to talk about, but I do know this. It's going to be worth writing down. It's going to be worth writing down. Here's how I would encourage you to listen today. You know, the word says, be careful how you listen. Listen from the leadership lens that you're most likely or you're most in. In other words, if you are leading a business and that is where you live and function the most, then listen today from that standpoint. If obviously whatever capacity you lead here at church, listen with that lens. As he talks about the content today, think about, how does this apply to my world? As you're writing notes, make notes off to the margin of who you're going to teach this to, how this applies to your world, or, hey, that answers this scenario. You know what I mean? Don't just sit here and just zone out and spend the next 2 hours going, well, that was a good motivational speech. No. Listen, lean in, dig in, all right? And then make notes, because these are going to be the notes. I still have my notes from his training 14 years ago. I still have it. It was a 3-ring binder, and it was this thick. I still have it today, all of the notes, and I still go back through it because it's just that good. After the second session, the team's going to have some lunch out there for us. We're going to call it a working lunch, meaning this: we'll let everybody get through the line, kind of get settled wherever we're going to get settled out there in the lobby, and then what I'm going to do at that point is we're basically going to turn it over to you guys in a sense, and you guys are going to have the opportunity to ask questions. And so I would encourage you. You know what's worse? You know the worst thing about a Q&A session? No one asks questions, right? It kind of sitting there, okay, well, I guess no one has any questions. So as we go through the sessions today, if you're curious about how this applies to your specific world, he's good for it. He's talked to marketplace business leaders, Fortune 500 companies. Like, he has talked to all of them, and then churches of 25 people. So, like, he's good for the whole gamut of conversation. So during the Q&A session, be prepared to ask questions, and then I really believe that we're going to get. We are privileged today. We are blessed today to have my friend Mike Ash in from Tampa, Florida. I'll let him come up and tell a little bit of his story, where he's at right now. But welcome my friend Mike Ash. He's going to come share with you guys.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. I will just start off by saying all of what he said is not entirely true. It's true that we met when we met. It's true that we connect when we connected, but it is not true that it's going to be as good as what he said. So let me lower your expectation real quick and get a little more right size what's going to happen today. I want to be honest. I love being here. I was here about 10 years ago, and it's rare. It's kind of fun. So I just turned 40 this past year. And it's been incredible to see throughout the years that there are certain people in certain ministries that you have the opportunity to see at the pre-birth and to now watch along the journey, and to see different leaders along the journey and to cheer them on, and to see, even the like Taylor, like I knew him as a kid, just I kind of met him as a kid, and now he's this man. And it's like, what are you married? How does that stuff work? Tayliana, like, she is the sweetest, and she will always be 16 to me. Like, she's, and so it's been fun to watch the journey that Your Place Church has been on, and the reigns, and the same is true for them coming in my life. They say that it has helped them so much, but for me, man, their friendship, their relationship has been absolutely incredible. And one thing you guys probably know this about your pastors is they're coaches. Like, they love helping churches, they love helping people, they love helping you, and so that's their heart, and so it's incredible to see. And it's an honor to be able to come in, because most of the stuff I'll talk about today, he could probably already teach you, but it's a different voice, and it's kind of the same thing when you're raising kids, when you bring someone else in, like you have another adult tell your kids, and your kids are like, guess what, the youth leader said, and you're like, I've been telling you that for years. So maybe today will be a little bit like that. So I see you're giving her a hard time. Yeah, giving your daughter a hard time. So my story is, I actually, the way that I got to Florida is when I was 17, I got saved. And I didn't grow up in church. That was not really my story at all. In fact, I grew up and had gotten in quite a bit of trouble when I was younger, living with my mom and my stepdad. My stepdad was an alcoholic. It was kind of a rough upbringing, and you tend to gravitate towards acceptance. Well, the acceptance for me was all of these friends who were doing bad stuff. And so when I was a teenager, I got in a bunch of trouble. I've been arrested a few times, gotten a bunch of, you probably can tell by the way I'm dressed and the way I act, but I was actually in a gang. And I was in, it was called Northside Crips. And the way I got in is this gang leader said, hey, we can either beat you in or I can punch you in the head 3 times. And I said, well, I'd rather have one person hit me than, a bunch of people hit me. So I sat there and he just clobbered me 3 times. And so I was in Northside Crips. And so, again, that's not really who I am now, but it was kind of that zone. And so my childhood, I was not really a church person, so I got saved when I was 17, and then started going to Bible college, and the church we were at split. The pastor had an affair. It was a mess. And then I had this friend, mentor, leader of mine say, hey, we're going to move to Fort Myers, Florida from Fort Wayne, Indiana, because that's where I ended up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We're going to move to Fort Myers, Florida. We're going to start a church together. And I thought, well, I was 21 at the time. I didn't know anything about starting a church. I knew very little about God in general because I was a new Christian. But I'm like, I felt called to ministry. Let's go. And so I threw my stuff on the back of his moving truck because I didn't even get a moving truck. I said, if you have room, I'll throw my stuff on. And so in 2002, January 2002, we moved to Fort Myers and started a church called Next Level Church in Fort Myers. And I was there for about 14 years, and that church grew over time. We were portable for 9 years, grew to about 900 people in a high school. We moved into a building, and it kind of blew up in a good way. And so we had about 2,500 people that ended up at that church. So again, from the start, you're like, look at what God's doing. And then in 2016, we kind of realized it was time for us to transition out. And in 2016, we moved to a church in Tampa, Florida, and this church was launching a campus. So they came to me and said, hey, we just bought a Winn-Dixie, and we're going to start a campus. We want you to come up and be the campus pastor and lead the campus. So that's where I am now. I'm in Tampa now at a church called Grace Family Church as a campus pastor and a leader of one of their campuses. And so it's been fun journey as we've gone through it. Through the journey, I've met my wife, and we got married. We've been married 15 years, and she is the best. And we have 2 kids, 2 boys. They're 13 and 11, Karsten and Bryden. And they are absolutely amazing. And so one of the things that I love to do is doing this, coming in, talking to you. And part of the reason why I love talking to you, and this is part of the reason why I love coming in, is because I've been executive pastor, I've been kids pastor, I've been a youth pastor. Through the journey, I've done all kinds of stuff, campus pastor, but I've never been a lead pastor. So my heart is for us. For me, I know what it takes, or at least on some level. I've always kind of seen it from this second chair, leader who's not the main leader. And so when I come in, my hope is today I can encourage you in that, and that you'll hear me from that, you'll grow in that as we go through that. So and the goal with taking notes, I would encourage you to take notes again. And the goal with taking notes for you is that I hope, and I hope this is true on the weekends too, I hope we don't come in and leave the same. I hope there's something that sets in you today that just challenges you. So I'd encourage you, I'd write stuff down, but also listen for the Holy Spirit to go to that one. And the way that the 2 teachings today are designed, they're for me, it's the first one, there's 5 points. The second teaching, there's 4 points. My encouragement is, if you would actually go, okay, which one of these do I need to work on? Which one is God pointing out to me that I need to grow in? Because the first one we're going to get into, we're going to talk about who we are as leaders. The second one, we're going to talk about what we do as leaders. Okay, so that's the way I've kind of laid this out and structured it as we go through it. So I talked about meeting my wife. So we met, I had started working at a church. I'm 6'4", and people ask me all the time, did you play basketball? I grew up in Indiana, lived in Florida for a few years, grew up in Indiana. They said, did you play basketball? And I didn't play any sports. And people are always surprised by that because I'm so tall and I live in Indiana, and you had to have played basketball. I didn't play basketball. The reason why is I'm tall, but I'm also really good at being awkward. So I'm not super coordinated. That's not where I'm at. And so the way I play basketball, if we ever play, I love playing basketball, but I just foul the snot out of people. Like that's my zone because I'm so big. And so that's what I do. And so when I started working at the church, I realized like I didn't exercise, I never worked out, I never did anything. And then I started working at a church sitting behind a desk, and I realized, okay, this is like I started getting bigger, and I'm like, I got to do something. And so I started running a little bit, trying to figure out a way to lose weight. And then I caught the eye of my wife, who had started coming to the church, and I had found out she just ran a marathon. Now, 26.2 miles. Yes, that's the exact feeling. Oh, it's terrible. But I thought, I don't know any other way to get in, like having that conversation. So I started running more and started doing that. And you know, about 4 months after we started dating, I ran a marathon. So she's worth it, though. She's worth it, so don't worry. I ran a marathon. But I remember the first time we went biking together. And she had her bike, and I borrowed her friend's girl bike, and I'm 6'4", right? And she said, let's go biking, and she wanted to go biking to Sanibel. Now in Fort Myers, there's Fort Myers, and then Sanibel is over this bridge over into Sanibel Island where you have to go. She's like, I want to go biking on Sanibel. And I thought, in my mind, biking with your girlfriend is this super romantic hangout. This is going to be beautiful. It's going to be incredible. And right before she leaves, she says, man, I'm excited to bike together. I love to bike because I love to see how fast you can go. And I thought, what'd you say? And I said, what'd you say? And she said, oh, I just love going fast. And I said, I thought this was going to be like a stroll, like we hang out. She's like, well, no, why would we do that? I don't know. So we go biking, and we get out on our bike, and I realized really quickly that her bike is a lot better than mine, and my girl bike that I'm on is not designed for me, and she keeps pulling away from me. Now, she keeps slowing down, and I notice she's slowing down, and as the guy who's dating, it's a very frustrating experience, but I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to go, and what happens is we get to the bridge, and she gets freaked out because all these cars are zooming by, and she decides, I'm just going to like get over the bridge, and she decides to turn it on. And she leaves me. And here I am on my girl's bike going up a bridge by myself, realizing my wife is a lot more athletic than I am and a lot more in shape than I am, and she has left me on the bike. Like, she has left me on the bike so I'm just there pedaling up this little mountain bike by myself, and I get up to the other side, and I come down the hill, and we're dating, remember? And she says to me, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, yes, I'm fine, because when you're dating, you lie to you lie to that person about not being mad about stuff like that. Well, that's kind of where, but that kind of inspired me. Okay, I got to get better at biking. And so I started biking a little bit. This is all going somewhere, by the way. I started biking a little bit, and I remember one day I went out biking, and I go out biking, and I'm thinking, I'm only going to go a couple miles, but I realize, like, I'm feeling good today. Because, again, I got to catch up with my wife. I'm feeling good today. And I go out, and I'm only going to do a couple miles, and I realize I'm going to do a lot more. Because I'm just fast, I'm strong, I'm getting better, and I can tell I'm getting better at biking. And I go out and I bike, and I get out to about 8 miles out, and I turn around. And as soon as I turn around, I realize something. I'm not faster. The wind was behind me. And I don't know if you've ever biked 8 miles into the wind, but there are miserable things. That's one of the most, okay? Okay. The reason why I tell that story is because you, at Your Place Church, you're the wind. You as leaders are either going to be the wind at this church's back or the wind in this church's face. The leaders and the people who serve will either make things so much easier and so much better and so much, like you're either going to make where it just works, or you're going to make it harder. And our desire and willingness and the fact you guys came out on a Saturday morning to grow, you're saying, hey, we want to be wind at the back. And I would encourage you guys, because again, like Pastor Darian said, at every level I've served at different levels. I think one of the greatest things that you can do in this room is decide, hey, we're going to figure it out, we're going to continue to grow, and we are not going to get stuck. And we are going to be the wind. And so what I want to do today, and talking about that as far as your growth and what that looks like, I want to talk about 5 characteristics of what I would call an incredible leader. Okay, 5 characteristics of an incredible leader. I'm sure there are more, but I have the microphone, so I'm going to go with these 5. And for me, the way that I work is I tend to work where I need some version of an acronym because it just works out a little bit better for me. The acronym, I'm going to make it better at some point, but right now it's MOODS, M-O-O-D-S, kind of the moods of a leader. And these are the 5 characteristics of what I would say for you to be an incredible leader. And here's my encouragement. Like I said earlier, look at the one that you need to grow in, okay? The first characteristic is magnetic. Every great, incredible leader is magnetic. Now, this seems a little bit intuitive when you start talking about leadership because when you think of a magnetic leader, of course a magnetic leader has to have people who are following them. They have to have people around them. In fact, when you look at, if you look throughout the Bible, you'll see Jesus. He was a magnetic leader. He would go around and people would follow him. David was a magnetic leader. We're going to talk about David in the next session. David had all these people that would just follow him. Magnetism is a part of leadership. As leaders, we have to consistently and constantly, we have to attract people to where we're at. But magnetism is not necessarily the life of the party. To be magnetic is not necessarily the guy who's like, hey, what's up? Woo, we like it. Now, that can be great. And in some environments, you need someone to do that. But magnetism is the ability to attract people to you and to keep them and to retain them. And if you want to be a great leader, you have to ask yourself the question, how can I be more magnetic to people around me? Now, if you find yourself at a place where you think, yeah, that's not, I'm not really a people person, that's awesome, but if you're going to be a leader, this is what we do. This is people person. This is kind of how you do it. And so you have to ask yourself, how can I be more magnetic? We have a lady in our church right now. She leads our pre-K environment, and she is not the super hype person. That's not the way she is, but she cares for people in a way that draws people to her. We have to constantly draw people or care for people in a way that draw people to us. There really are 3 characteristics I wrote down of a magnetic leader. So 3 characteristics of a magnetic leader. The first is available. Available. As the leaders, you are the connection to the people. You have to be available. And the reason why this is big is because with everything we have going on, the tendency in this stage of church is to think, okay, yeah, we love the people, but we got some work to do. Yeah, we love the people are here, and hey, I'm glad you're here. Here's your job, here's your job, here's your job. Okay, ready? Go do your job, and I'm going to do my job, and I'm not going to actually spend the time that I need to spend with the people. Okay? And what happens is we become essentially taskmasters, and you'll attract people to you who essentially they feel bad or they feel loyal to you or loyal to the church, but they're not really tied to you. We have to be available to the people that we're leading. That's part of being magnetic, is being available to those that we're leading. We have to look at ourselves and ask the question, especially as the church grows, how do we continue to be there with the people in the church? And here's the question. This is the question for us when we're interacting with different people in the church. What is their next step? We got to talk to, I was talking to Drew earlier about kids ministry. And one of the things I said to Drew earlier is, hey, one of the, if you're in a department right now that's understaffed, and let me just say this, in light of COVID, we're all in departments that are understaffed. Let me just say that. People dropped off. Some people took it as a perfect excuse to stop serving. Some people, they just aren't back yet. Some people are comfortable to come to church. They just don't want to serve. There's a little bit of that that's happened. And what I told him was, hey, but there are people who are coming, and kids ministry is understaffed. And if you think about it, then how many conversations do you need to have to get one person serving again? In your area ministry, think about it. So if you need to have 5 conversations to get one person to serve, that means if you need 10 people, you need 50 conversations. Okay, that's it. Which seems crazy, but think about this: how many a week? How many coffees a week? How many interactions in the lobby a week? Part of the reason why we have to be available, because we're so busy doing the work and doing the job, then we can't be with people having those conversations and talking to them and asking them, hey, where are you serving? Are you not? Hey, man, we would love. You would be a great usher. I don't know if you're an usher, but you'd be great on this team. As leaders, we have to be available with people and not so consumed with the work. Okay, we got to be out there with the people. So the second thing is personable. We have to be available. We have to be personable. People love being around a magnetic leader, but magnetic leaders love being around people. A magnetic leader should focus on spending time with people. We should be wanting to spend that time with people. We should, on the weekends, like whatever we can do to be in the lobby, whatever we can do to be in whatever lobby that looks like, to be out with the people. We should be interacting, and we should be personable. The third thing is intentional. We have to be intentional. This is the difference between a leader and someone that everybody loves. This is the difference between a leader and somebody everybody loves. Likability without intentionality leads to inefficiency. Okay? Because likability without intentionality leads to inefficiency. If everyone loves you, but you're not helping them take a next step, you're not leading them anywhere. Okay? The goal is you want people to love you. Like there is a part of that. You want people, like, you need to go after those people that you have that connection with. And yes, it's great that they love you, but if you're not helping them take a next step, like, hey, where do you want to serve? And really, for me, every time I'm sitting down with somebody, and again, as a pastor, I sit down with people and I'm asking, where's your next step serving? Where's your next step in groups? Where's your next step spiritually? Like, part of the reason why you're in this room is you are helping as co-ministers to move people along their journey. And when we sit down with people, we should be having those conversations. In the lobby, we should be having those conversations. We should be doing that, and we should be building relationships in order to help people move along their journey. Because as leaders, we are magnetic. So how are you doing at being available, personable, and intentional? How are you doing at drawing people to you and moving them along their journey? That's what we do. We help move people. We lead people on their journey. The second O is optimistic. Optimistic. Every person, and this is the illustration. So every time there is an idea that comes up, every time there's a new vision, every time there's a change that's shared, every person in any environment, they have two things in their hand. They either have water, or this is coffee, but we're going to call it fuel because it really is fuel, right? It fuels you. They have coffee and their fuel. And whenever a new idea, a change, a vision, something is shared, every person has a decision to make. Which one are you going to throw on the fire? When something comes up, am I going to throw water on the fire and kill it? I'm going to throw fuel on the fire and light it up a little bit more. As leaders, one of the things we have to be optimistic, because we have to consistently believe that God is doing something special and God is moving in an incredible way. And as leaders, we have to constantly be throwing fuel on the fire of what's happening. Okay, what we can't do, and here I'll tell you how to throw water on the fire. Okay, this is good because some of you are natural water throwers. Not because it's bad, not because it's vindictive, but some of you are natural water throwers. You mean to tell you how to throw water on some a new idea that happens? You ask how. Hey guys, we're going to reach the city, but how? I don't know, but we're gonna reach the city. Okay? And one of the things I encourage every leader to do, that in those moments when something's announced, when it's talked about, when a new idea happens, then instead of saying how, you got to say wow. Wow. Oh man, that's amazing. Wow. And in your head, you'll think, there's no way. There is no way. We're never. But you know what? Keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Okay? Because we have to begin to train to believe ourselves, or we got to train ourselves to believe that God can do it. Like, if you don't naturally think that when you hear change, think about Moses. Moses sent 12 spies into the land. Remember that story? Said 12 spies into the land. 10 of them came back. You know what they said? There is no way. They got giants. They're going to kill us. They're going to mess us up. Okay? And 2 of them are like, Caleb actually said, it's Exodus or Numbers 13, verse 30. It said, Caleb told the people to be quiet. He said, shut your mouth, shut up, and listen to Moses. And he said, let's go now and take possession of the land. We should be more than able to conquer it. More than able. 10 people through water. 2 people through fuel. What are you throwing on the fire? Because you know what happened to the 10 people is probably not going to happen to you. God killed all of them. Like they're out. Caleb and Joshua got to see the promised land. Not that God's going to kill you. But the reason why this is important for us is because especially again, as the church grows, the inner circle, like our circles continue to grow. You hear about things less earlier. Like there's probably a point earlier on in the church where you would hear about change that was coming, depending on how long you were coming, way before anybody else heard it. But as the church continues to grow, you won't hear about it ahead of time anymore. And when you hear about it, you have to choose in that moment, what are you going to throw on the fire? How are you going to respond to that moment? Because everybody else in the church, anybody else who attends your place church that's not in this room, you know who they look at when Pastor Darian stands up and goes, hey guys, this is what we're doing? They all look at you. They all look at you. And they're all standing there with their water and their fuel on the fire, and they're determining what they're going to throw. And most times, people will do what the leaders in the room do. And we have to decide. We have to train ourselves to be optimistic. We have to train ourselves. Part of the reason why this is good, this is such a good characteristic for leaders, is because, and the reason why being optimistic is important, is because we should just live with the belief. Like, I don't know if you feel settled right now and where the church is, but there should be a belief that God wants to do way more than he's done right now. Like, way more. Like you should be frustrated when you have a big Sunday, but it's not completely packed out. Like part of you should celebrate. Don't not celebrate. But there should be a part of you that goes, gosh, like, why aren't we twice this size? Like, why are there 2,000 people here? Like if you're like, man, this is great, it's good. No. We should be, that optimism should unsettle us. And it should force us to look for more. It should force us to get better. We should always be looking out around our environments to go, how can we make this better? We should always be looking around at our teams going, how can we engage them more? We should be looking at our groups, how can we continue to grow it? And look at our kids' ministry, how can we do better? Optimism should lead us to a place where we believe God can do more than we could ever ask or imagine, and we don't know why he hasn't done it yet. And so as leaders, that's our urgency. And it drives us. When you're an optimistic leader, you believe that God's going to do it. You believe it's going to happen. You believe anything's possible. And so we say, wow. And I'll tell you what, when you throw fuel on the fire, I would just say this from different leadership environments I've been throughout my life, that when a leader is surrounded with people who consistently throw fuel on the fire, not everything works. Because there's some bad ideas out there. I'll just say this, some bad ideas. But when you throw fuel, the good ideas actually they get huge. And so we have to throw fuel on that fire. And I would say this too, if you are an idea kind of dreamer leader, you have to surround yourself with the right people. You have to have some fuel throwers around you to help grow the fire that's inside of you. Because an idea at the very beginning is the most fragile. And so you need people that will help you and push you and grow you in a safe place where you can actually talk about crazy ideas. Crazy ideas. And I think for a lot of us, we've learned this through COVID, is that we're going to need some crazy ideas in this next season. We're going to need to try some things that have never been done before. We need to, there are some things that the church in general is going to have to do to grow. And so we have to have optimism. We have to be optimistic leaders as we go through it. So do you throw water or fuel the majority of the time? And if you don't know, ask your leader, because they can probably tell you this is what you do. And you got to do it. The third O is open. It's open. When Kobe Bryant was in high school, Kobe Bryant once said when he was in high school, it was like basketball was harder for him. It was more challenging to play against the teams he played in high school than it was in the pros. The reason why, he said, is because once somebody got paid, they quit fighting. Once somebody got the check, it was like their intensity lessened. In churches, when you get to a certain place, certain size, it's easy for your intensity to lessen. Like, it's easy for you not to go as hard, and it's easy for us as leaders when we feel like we're at a good place in our career and our church to go, you know what? I don't know that I want to grow anymore. Because if we're going to be great leaders, we have to be at a place where we're consistently teachable and we're willing to allow God to challenge us in anything. And here's the struggle. Here's the illustration that I've used that I feel like helps me a lot. That over time, whenever we start off in leaders, like I think about me when I was 21, starting a church, I'm like, God, I'll do anything. And I just had, like, this is how I led. Teach me, teach me, teach me, teach me. I'll try anything. I remember I went, the lead pastor I was with, he hated doing hospital visits. Okay, he wasn't good at it. And I'm like, I'll do them. I also hated doing hospital visits. But I would say this, I still hate it. Okay, so I'll tell you, I'm not good at it. I'm not great at it. The reason why is, I don't know why this is. There are some pastors, when they come to your hospital room and you're struggling, they're like, God's got it. Don't worry. And like they have this gift of faith. When I go in a hospital room, I'm like, looks bad. Like, let's call it. I mean, we can pray, but it sounds like it's not going to work. Like, it's not, like, I just don't personally, like, it's not a strong side for me. Like, I don't know what that is. And so I don't typically go, and if I do, again, I can fake it a little bit, but I'm not, like, great in that scenario. But in my mind, I'm like, man, I don't even know what to say. Like, maybe, like, God, make the end good. Like, that's my prayer. And so, but I went this time with this lady, and I go and I knock on her door, and I knock on the door, and they said, come in, okay? They said, come in. And I walked into the room, and I realized that she was covered up where she needed to be covered up, but they were giving her a sponge bath, or there was something going on. And I'm probably 24 at the time, and I'm like, okay. And I go, hey, and their eyes are big, and I'm like, hey, I'm Mike. I'm from church. I'm here to pray for you because you're sick. And they're like, well, we're kind of in the middle of something. I said, it's okay. No joke. I walked over, and I put my hand on her bare shoulder, and I prayed for her. The most awkward experience that she's ever had with the pastor, for sure. Lord, maybe heal her. I don't know, because I'm not good at that. Prayed for her, walked out, no joke. She's never been back. She never came back to the church. And God bless, I'm kind of glad. Like, this was awkward and weird. But for me at the time, I'm like, but I'll do it. I'll do whatever. But over time, through the leadership journey, what happens is you start to close your hands. You start to go, I'm open. I'll do whatever. I mean, think about this as marriage, right? Oh, when you meet somebody, you stand at the altar and you think to yourself, I'll do whatever. I'll wash the dishes every night and do the trash every night and and what happens over time? Why didn't you do the laundry? Like it's their job to wash your clothes. Why didn't you do the laundry? Why didn't you wash the dish? Why didn't you? Suddenly it's now, and we need to change. None of us want to change. This is just the way I am. That statement, I would just say this. If you've ever said that statement, this is just who I am. In my opinion, you have closed yourself off to growth in an area. And so you just said, this is who I am. No. We grow. If we're going to be leaders, we're going to be open. Like there are things right now that you're like, I'm just not good at it. No. You have used an excuse. You have learned how to say it in a way that other people won't challenge you, but it's not true. You can get better at it. You may not love it, but you can get better at it. Like you can continue to grow in that. Oh, I just don't like administrative stuff. That's you don't have to like it to learn it and to be open to it. I just don't like going, and I don't like asking people to serve. Like I don't like that. You don't have to like it to learn it. You don't like it to do it. We do a lot of things we don't like, right? I mean, that's our life. You do a lot of things you don't like. What we have to do is we have to be at a place where we're open. And so my encouragement for you is wherever you're at is to be open. And I would encourage you to, whoever your leader is, and this could be in your job, this could be here. I think one of the best practices is going down and sitting down with your leader, asking them the question, where do I need to grow? Like where am I struggling right now? And my encouragement for you is when we get through this list, is you'll take this list to your leader and ask them, okay, what's my lowest? What's my lowest? The reason why is you're responsible for your growth. If you want to get better, it's not their job, it's your job. I think it's one of the best things I learned throughout my journey is I always thought if I need to get better, they'll tell me. And then they'd tell me, and you know what I'd do? I'd kind of pout about it, or I'd be like, my feelings would be hurt. And here's what I would say. You need to initiate it because it's important for you to grow. And if you have a loving, caring leader, they're going to be a little bit hesitant to tell you. So you got to sit down with them. You got to put your big boy pants on and go, hey, tell me where I need to grow. Like, because I want to get better. Because we need to be open. We have to fight to keep our hands open. We have to fight to keep our posture open. We have to live that way. We have to get better every day. So we have to seek feedback in this as we continue to go through it. And I would say this, just before I move on. If you're going to receive feedback, in order to receive feedback, you have to be secure. Okay? If someone tells you an area to grow, again, not everybody, because church leaders, we have people tell us all the time, Pastor Darian, probably the thing you don't know about what happens to him, that I know that happens because it happens to anybody in a public Christian stage, he gets letters that people just slam him, and he'll get people who randomly, that he's never met before, walk up to him and criticize the message he just spent 20 hours preparing and 35 minutes delivering, and they come up and they do it in a way that's so stupid. Like, just, it's stupid. That's what it is. Okay, he just has that. He has to endure that. He has to go through it. Okay, but if you have someone who loves you, who cares about you, and is trying to help you, come up to you in a loving way and say, hey, there's an area we need to talk about growing, and they tell you, but you can't receive it, or you're defensive, or you feel insecure, that is something deeper happening within you that you have to explore. Because if you're unable to receive feedback, unable to grow, what will happen is you will learn how to say all of the reasons why you are the way that you are in a way that sounds good. Like, yeah, you know what, I just love him too much, No, you're scared of conflict, okay? You start to say some things. And so I would encourage you, like if that comes up, somebody gives you feedback and it just messes with you, you just want to throw them under the bus, you're just mad. Like, one of the exercises my wife and I do, I mean, it's very difficult, is we'll go on a date night. We do this about every 6 weeks, and we ask this question. We say, where am I doing something really well, and where am I doing something, like, where do I need to improve? And I love the first part. Like, what am I doing well? Tell me. Woo, it's so awesome. But what am I doing? Where do I need to improve? You almost hold your breath. Again, we've been married 15 years. We've been doing this for a while. But still, we just hold our breath. It is a great practice. I think one of the great practices for those who lead us is to go, hey, where am I killing it right now? And where am I killing you right now? Like, how can I help through this? We have to be open. I think it's one of the greatest tools of being a leader is to be open. How are your hands, like, how would you define are you open? Or are you shut right now? We got to open it up. The D is driven. I told you I ran a marathon, and I'll still run every once in a while now. And one day I was out for a run, and a car broke down. So I'm out running, and I see this car, and it is broke down, and it's at this stoplight. And I think to myself, well, I'm already out running. I might as well help them. So I run over. It's kind of a busy street. And I go, hey, you guys are broke down? Yeah, I'm broke down. Hey, I'll help you push the car. And so I said, put it in neutral, and we'll push it across to the gas station. So they put it in neutral, and I get behind the car, and no joke, I get behind the car to start pushing, and they get in the car. They shut the door, sit in the car, and now it's just me pushing their car across their stoplight. And here's what I would say. It's not fun. If you ever had to push a car, it's not fun. It is more fun to drive a car than to push a car. As leaders, okay, it's a lot more fun to lead someone who's driven than to push someone who's not. And as leaders, listen, and we know this is true of the people around us. There are some people, like if you've ever wanted something for someone more than they wanted it, it's a miserable experience. You want them to grow because you can see it in them, and you can do this, and you got it. But you're waking them up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. to work out, and they don't want to do it, and you're like, God, you're like wearing you out. You're trying to take them to counseling. They don't really want to counsel. Like, you're trying to help them, but they don't want the help. Okay, as leaders, we are the pace setters. Like, as leaders, we set the pace. And so for us, we have to continue to be driven. And if we're going to be leaders, like great leaders, we have to decide that we are going to be driven. We're not going to have to be pushed. We set the pace. There are 4 characteristics of a driven person. That first one I already said is that they set the pace. Driven leaders set the pace. The pace setter, again, we've seen it in races, and I told you I ran that marathon. There's always a guy with a sign, like multiple people with time on their sign, and if you want to run an 8:30-minute mile for the whole marathon, you run with that guy the whole time. You run a 10-minute mile, you run with that guy the whole time. For where you guys are at, you set the pace in the organization of your place church. So for you, you are the pace setters. But driven people, they go above and beyond. They do more than what's asked. They're not just doing the minimum. They're doing more than what's asked. And I would say one of the greatest things about this is that for you as leaders, and you guys care so much about this church, and you believe that God's using this church to reach into the community and doing so much. And what I would say is, this is your church. I think one of the things that driven people do is they decide, it's not just my department. Like, this is my area. And hey, that's not my job. No. One of the phrases I try to say all the time is, it's all your job. Like, it's all my job. If there's trash on the floor, guess whose job it is? That's my job. And if it doesn't look right, it's my job. And if it doesn't sound right, it's my job. And if it's not set up right, it's my job. Like, it's all my job. Because we're going to go above and beyond. We're not going to allow other people to do things because it's their job and this isn't my job. But if we see something and we have the ability to step into it, we're going to step in it and fix it. Now, we don't want to be so spread out, but as driven people, hey, it's all my job. We own the whole environment. We are owners in the environment. The third thing is they attack problems, not you, when there's a problem. Okay? Driven people attack problems. As leaders, they're not just identifiers of problems, they're solvers of problems. They're identifiers of solutions. Anybody can identify a problem. Anybody can tell you what's wrong. We all know what's wrong. Go fix what's wrong. If there's something right now that's bothering you, don't come with a problem. Don't come with a complaint. Come with a solution. What can we actually do to fix it? There's plenty of other problems going on. How can you actually attack the problems? And the reason why is because if you're going to be driven and a complainer, all that will do is wear somebody out. Be a driven and be a solver. Like, help solve the problems. And then the fourth thing that driven people do, driven leaders do, is they create chaos. They create chaos. This isn't bad because in Proverbs 14:4, it says, where there are no oxen, the manger is empty, but from the strength of an ox comes abundant harvest. And what he's saying right here is when there are no oxen, the manger is empty, like it's clean, but from the strength of ox comes abundant harvest. So either you're going to have a clean manger and no harvest, or you're going to have a messy manger and a lot of harvest. Okay? It's not all going to be pretty. There's going to be a little bit of chaos. And as driven leaders, there is a little bit of chaos. Go solve problems. What if it's wrong? Swing the bat and see. Come up with new ideas. Come up with dreams. Hey, we should try this. It may not always work. Again, you got to be secure. You got to be open. Come up with solutions. Hey, what if we went in the community and we did a hot air balloon, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that may not ever work, but come up with the idea. Create a little bit of chaos. What could you do to create a little bit of chaos, a little bit of buzz, and growing your place church? Are you a leader who needs to be pushed, or are you a leader who needs to be steered? And then the fifth characteristic of an incredible leader is the S is, it's 2 words. It's seeing eye. It's seeing eye. In Luke chapter 7, there's a centurion's son who was sick. And he sent out some Jews to get Jesus, and then he thought better of it, and Jesus went with them with their friends, and he was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends and said to him, Lord, don't even trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you, but say the word, and my servant will be healed. So he's saying to Jesus, you just say the word, and it'll be done. For I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me, and I tell this one go, and he goes, and this one come, and he comes. And I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, and this is what Jesus said to the people, I have not found such great faith even in Israel. And what Jesus is saying in the moment, he said, okay, everybody gather around. The centurion came, he said, hey, just say the word and he'll be healed. Everybody gather around. You see what just happened with that guy? That's what I mean. Like, you want to know what it's like to have faith? That's what it means, okay? As leaders, this applies to us in two ways. When somebody looks at you and interacts with you, okay, you want to know what it's like to be a leader at your place? This guy. Like, you just hang out with them, and you just see it, okay? There should be an element of we just understand what the culture is, what the heart is, what it's like here. And when they interact with you, it is like they're interacting with the church. We have to understand that. We also have to understand the second way, that when we walk in and it's not right, we walk in and it's not, that we have this seeing eye that we look in and go, okay, something's not, like we gotta fix it. Which means as leaders, we have to constantly be studying why we do what we do and why we do certain things different ways. And we've got to be learning exactly why we do it. Jesus pointed to the centurion as the reason why this is how you do what we do. We have to be able to walk in and see different things and see what works and walk into our departments and actually be able to see how to make those things better. You are, and I'll close with this before we take a break, and we can ask a couple questions if we want to. You are the wind. You are the wind. Are you the wind in the back? Are you the wind in the face? How are you doing at being magnetic, optimistic, open, driven, and seeing eye? Here's what I encourage you to do. Put these in order, from your strongest to your weakest on your sheet. Like, which one of these are you strongest in? Which one are you weakest in? And then what can you do to start growing in the weakest of these areas? Because you are the wind. All right, how are you processing that? What thoughts, questions, emotions? I appreciate it. You always got to have the first question. Always got to be brave. That's it. And here's what I'll just say this real quick. Sorry about these rooms. Whenever like, so what do you think? One of the things is we all, for the most part, have had to stand up at this stage and then say, so what thoughts do you have? And then stand here while no one says anything. So yeah, we all know the tension.
That's just not my character. That's just not who I am. If you're looking for somebody who's, optimistic, maybe I'm the wrong person, or even to the point of being open. Well, I just see things differently than you. That's a phrase I get a lot. Well, I just see things differently than you see them. And wanting to recognize a person's individuality and what they do see, but yet understanding that we're all still like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I would say is I don't just we're not all yes men. Like that doesn't help anybody. Like that, it's not that. The belief that it can happen and being optimistic to believe it, that is a choice. Okay? Optimism is a choice. Your attitude's a choice. Okay? One of the best things, so one of the things over the past couple years I've learned is that this little very simple diagram is that there are stuff that happens to you, okay? No matter what happens to you, there's only one thing you have the ability to control. One thing is your choice. And especially with your attitude, there's only one thing you can control is your choice. And you are either going to choose to view it in a positive, I didn't spell it right, or a positive or a negative view. Everything that happens to you and everything that's happening around you, you're either going to approach it with, yeah, we can do it. Like, let's see how it happens. through your personality and your viewpoint and where you're at and those things. Yes, here's where we're going to go. Because ultimately, the lead vision is going to come from Pastor Darian and Tyra. Like, they're going to be the lead visionaries to go, hey, we think we want to do this. How are we going to do it? The answer is not, oh, it just can't be done. No, that's just not really who I am. Like, no. Yes, now let's figure it out. Like the first response is, yeah, we can do it, and we're going to figure it out. And leaning in and deciding that we are going to be positive people, believing it can happen, and leaning in, like that's a huge part. I don't know if does that fully answer your question as far as optimism goes. So that's where we have to be, yeah, that's just, because like I would say that for me, I am not naturally open. Like, I'm not naturally optimistic at times either. I feel like I've trained myself to be that way. And because what would happen is there'd be an idea, and I could tell you 10 reasons why it wouldn't work. Like, I just know why it doesn't work. I just know why. And when I changed, this is my encouragement, when I changed that, I saw things that I thought would never work. Like, I saw ideas that I thought could never happen. And so for me, it's, yes, now let's figure it out. Yes, let's do it. So I think it's a training process that you have to train yourself. Like, that's where I would say you are not done growing yet. And so that's where I would encourage you. If you don't think you're an optimistic person, or you don't think this is just the way I am, I would encourage you that I think for you, you can train yourself, and you have to all the time. Whenever something happens to you, you have to continue to decide, I'm going to see this through, like, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to see myself through a yes, we can do it light, in a positive light. And I think throughout all of life, I think this is a training process. It's all positive. You can see people who are, we've all known people who are sick, and there are some people who are sick, and man, look how great of an experience it was. Like, they say it was great, and some people say it was the worst thing in the world. And usually the only thing that's different is their choice and what they decide. People who have everything and people who have nothing, there are people who have everything and they're miserable. And people who have nothing who are so, like, if you've ever been to a foreign country before, you realize, I think they're more happy than I am. Like, you see these people and you're like, how do they have so much joy? Like, I went to this church in Kenya, and I preached at this church for this revival, and at the end of this revival, so think about this, or this end of this church service, they asked me to come on the stage, and these people, the Kenyan people who walked to church, they said, we would like to bless you. They give me a plate, and the Kenyan people walk up and put money on the plate. And for me, I'm like, I am not taking this money. Like, there is no way. Like, because I drive 2 cars. Like my wife has a car and I have a car. You guys all walked here. I'm not taking it. Like, it was like a holy moment of, I told the missionary, yeah, I don't care what you do with this money. Like, I give it back. Like, I am not taking it. And he said, well, you know, for them, it is important for them to bless you. And I kind of gave it right to the missionary and said, well, then you do whatever you want with it. But it was like, it was that I am not going to touch anything that has to do with it. But I interacted with those, and they were just like the most joyful, happy people in the world. And you just think, gosh, how do they? Well, the reason why is because it's not about what you have. It's not about what happens to you. It's not about what's going on in your world. It's what you choose. And so we have to choose to be positive. We have to choose to see things through different. And so when somebody treats you a certain way, hey, yeah, they're probably just having a bad day. Like, yeah, they're just going through it. Like, I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they're awesome. I'm sure they're incredible people. You just have to constantly force yourself to believe it. You got it. How do you push someone who doesn't want it? Well, I had a counselor tell me one time, and it was good advice. He said, if you ever find yourself wanting something for them more than they want it for themselves, you got to quit. Like, until they want to, you can't force it. You can't. The reason why, in Proverbs it talks about the borrower and the lender. Well, it changes the dynamic of relationship. Well, if you're in a position where you're trying to help someone more than they want it, it's the borrower and lender thing. And so what happens is that I want you to be better than you want to be better. So now when I see you, I'm frustrated that you don't want it more, and you avoid me because you're expecting, like, that I'm expecting something from you. And so the best thing you can do when you encounter someone who wants it, or you want it for them more, is honestly to go, hey, whenever you're ready, you're good. You're good. Like I have people all the time who are like, hey, I want to start working out. Can I work out with you? I'm like, yeah, just show up anytime. I tell them all the time, but I'm not calling them consistently, because if they want to do it, I do it. Because if I am, then I'm going to wear them out. And so that's where I would say for you, don't push people. Like if they'll go at their own pace. If they don't want it, there's nothing you can do.
We got a mic, so we can have it for the audio recording.
All right, so outside of the church, I'm in a very unique leadership position. Most of them know I'm in a motorcycle club. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
in kind of a middle leadership area there. So I get an idea from my president, and he says, all right, this is what I want to see happen. Like, cool, go make that happen. And so I go to my guys, give them the idea. Everyone throws fuel on it, like, it's awesome. It doesn't work. I go, all right, this didn't work. I don't care. That's the idea. Keep running with it. Figure out how to make it work. Go back to my guys. The cycle repeats. How do you address that? Like,
Yes, that's a good question.
like the openness is there, the positivity is there. Like, we want to make this happen, but continuing the same idea over and over again, expecting different results. Definition of insanity.
So I would ask a couple things. Have you brought back a different solution to your leader,
Yes.
and they're just not open to it?
Yeah. The most of the time it's just, hey, no, I don't like. This is what I want to see happen.
Yeah. Okay, so in the vagueness of it, but in my opinion, I think some of the stuff you're doing is right as far as, okay, we'll do it and go after it. For me, I think what I'd encourage you to do is figure out, okay, if this is happening, even though, because it's probably not happening anywhere else, if it's not happening with you guys, I would really try to brainstorm on okay, how could this work? What could we do? What variation of this could we actually do to actually make this work? And then I'd try as many different angles you could to do it, and consistently push up different solutions up to your leader. And then if it's a consistent flow of they're not open to it and it doesn't work, and that grows a level of frustration for you, at some point you have to decide if you want to stay there. Like, at some point you have to decide, in any environment, are the leaders open to feedback? Are they open to me kind of speaking up to something? But I'm going to work like crazy to make it work down here. And so Andy Stanley has this phrase that loyalty publicly creates leverage privately. And so if you're with your team, it's always, we got it. And then with your leader, it ain't working. But it's always the face with the team. It's going, we got this. But with your leader, it's going, hey man, like, here are the 5 things we tried. They still didn't work. Like, what else do you, like, we got to come up with a different way to do it. Just make it, okay, that's fine. It's just not working. We're going to try these. And then through that process, you have to decide, either he's going to open up over time, he's going to begin to trust you because he knows you're not throwing him under the bus down here. But if he still never if he never opens up, you have to decide where you want to be in that organization and what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who else?
She's got it.
This is great stuff.
Hi, thank you so much. So the question I have is a little bit opposite from his. I've been in management for years, and I have people that want to step up and want to be driven, and they're trying, but we just can't. I haven't had that problem here, obviously, but it's hard to kind of find a position for them. Like, they're ready, they're open, they're showing up, they're driven, but they're just not there doesn't seem to be a place for any of them. And when you see somebody that really wants to do that, like I've had people just seal envelopes just because they wanted to be there and do something, and try to encourage them and find their strengths. And I've had a few people in my path that I've really struggled with that with that are wanting to do it
And
as
what
much as I'm wanting them to.
what organization is it?
I've done it in counseling and in restaurants, just being management. Just find people that are there showing up doing it, you know what I mean? And counseling and people just trying to change their lives and wanting to do better, and they just can't seem to find their niche. You know what I mean? So that's just a question I have in terms of leadership.
So for that, as far as that, because they seem to be driven, they seem to be open. I think this is true in church, but I think as Christians and as Christian leaders, this has the ability to be true for us. If I were you, I would look at them and go, okay, they're only going to be with me for what, 3 years maybe? 2 or 3 years? So how do I, as a leader, continue to empower them and grow them so that wherever they land next, they're better off because they were here? And so for me, it would be like I would actually look through, okay, what resource can I give them? What podcast can they listen to? Like there may not be a position for them, but how do I resource them and develop them? Even again, for us, we call it small groups in churches, but how do we have little staff meetings once a week where I'm going to teach a leadership principle and I'm going to grow this staff? Because any of those environments, you know, you have a staff that's kind of, they're passing through, they're working their way through it. And what I would say with all of our work environments, people are just passing through. I mean, very few people work somewhere 30 years anymore. Like they're passing through. So if you have people that are hungry in your teams, even though you may not even have the ability to promote them, I would say if you can look at it as it's an investment for a short period of time, because I know hopefully they're going to end up in bigger, better things. I think it was Microsoft used to say, hey, if you work here 3 years, your market value after 3 years and your ability to do your job after 3 years is going to be so much better. And if you could be the leader that, hey, if you work for me for 3 years, that when you leave here, you're going to be able to demand more pay, like you're going to be better equipped to do your job, you're going to be a stronger leader. And so I would look at that and go, how do you equip those driven people? Because they need it. If they feel like they hit a lid, there may not be a position for you, but we are going to help you grow if just because you're a part of here. Yeah.
We'll take one more and then we'll take a break.
So in the sense of the positive and negative, what happens when you have somebody else that maybe like in life groups or in your serving areas that like you want to cultivate more positivity in them because you know that like maybe sometimes they just get super frustrated and it comes out as like a negativity kind of sense. What's a good way to like kind of cultivate and kind of cattle dog them into like kind of redirecting that into like a positive light?
That's a great question. How do you change behavior on people who serve? I heard a guy give a talk one time, and he said, if you want to change people's behavior, which you're a parent, this is really good too. He basically said there are 5 steps to changing your behavior. You have to create the expectations of what you want to see. So you have to determine what you want, and if it's positivity on a team, you have to determine that. And then you have to figure out how you're going to communicate those expectations. So what does it look like? And it probably is talking about it all the time. This is true at home. This is true in your workplace. How do we communicate it? How are you going to reward it? What gets rewarded gets repeated. And so what are you going to do when you see that person actually be positive? What will you do? It's probably a, hey, way to go, good job, send them a note. And occasionally it's celebrating them in a bigger way. What are the consequences? So when they don't act the way that they're supposed to act, what do you do? I think you have to predetermine that. Every time they don't act a certain way, there should be a consequence. So same thing with kids. It's don't let them go, let them go, let them go. Boom. You've taught them that not to act that way. You've told them not to act that way 5 times. And so there has to be some version of a consequence, which is usually just a conversation. And sure, at some point, maybe after, hey, if this doesn't change in 6 months, maybe you have to move somebody. But for the most part, it's just, hey, you're gonna address it as soon as it happens. But you've already created, hey, if you're gonna be on the team, this is how we need you to act. This is what we want you to do. We are a positive team. And John, I think you can do it. Or Susie, I think you can be. Consequence. And then basically, it's the last one is aligned behavior. What this means is you have to be the leader has to be that way. So if you want them to be positive, then you have to be positive, and has to like you have to model the behavior you want. And so for me, I would go through and go, what do you want for your team? Like, what are the behaviors? What do you want your kids to act? How do you want your kids to act? How do you want your teams to act? Now, how are we going to communicate to them consistently? This is how we act. My wife and I, we created it's a family vision statement. Is that we have it on our wall, and we, as the Ashes, we choose, because it's all choice, we choose to be positive and healthy, and help others do the same every day, every way. That's our vision statement on our wall. And when our kids act outside of positivity, or they don't act in a healthy way with each other, we come to them and we say, boys, this is not how we act. This is not what we do. And we try to catch them doing something right as well. And then for us, we have to be positive and healthy every day, every way, and help others do the same. So going through this has helped to go, how do we actually do it? Because every time somebody breaks the expectation of what you want them to act, you've got to address it. You got to talk to them. That's the way. But you have to do a good job of communicating those expectations. Of go, this is how we act on our team. Does that make sense? That's a very short way to teach a very big thing, but those 5 things, that's helped me. Anytime I've seen anyone act in a way that's not what I want as a leader, I have to go through and go, and usually I'm not doing a good job communicating it. Like if you're ever frustrated with somebody, it's usually because you haven't communicated what you actually want. All right, we're going to take a break.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's about 10:15 right now, so